Welcome to vpod.ai. This deep dive is sponsored by Stonefly, your trusted solution provider and advisor in enterprise storage, backup disaster recovery, hyper-converged VMware, Hyper-V, Proxmox cluster, AI servers, SA365, a turnkey security appliance public and private cloud. Check out stonefly.com for more info.
So today we're plunging into something that sounds incredibly simple, maybe even obvious, reading aloud to kids.
Right.
But when you look at, well, the current landscape and some recent findings, it's actually a lot more complex and crucial, especially with how busy life is.
Exactly. And that busyness seems to be impacting the practice itself. Recent information suggests that fewer parents are consistently making time for this, which means understanding why it's so valuable is arguably more important now than ever. Our mission today is to really unpack the powerful, research-backed benefits of this seemingly simple activity.
Okay, let's unpack that. What's happening right now? Are we actually seeing a shift? Is it declining? We are, yeah. Surveys indicate a pretty concerning trend. For instance, one British survey highlighted a significant drop in parents reading aloud daily to their preschool-aged children.
How significant?
It fell from 64% just over a decade ago to only 41% recently.
Wow, 64 down to 41%. That's a massive decline.
It really is.
So why do you think that's happening? I mean, are parents just not aware it's important anymore, or...?
Well, that same survey gives us some clues. The most common reason cited by about a third of parents was simply a lack of time.
Okay, that makes sense. Busy lives.
But this was quite revealing. Only 40% of the parents surveyed said they found reading aloud fun for me.
Only 40%. That's striking. It sounds like maybe the messaging around reading being fun for the kids might have overshadowed how much of a lift it can feel like for the parents.
That's a really good point.
Especially, at the end of a long, tiring day, I can certainly relate to that exhaustion.
Oh, completely understandable. And for a long time, the focus from educators was indeed on fostering a love for reading, right? Making it a happy, stress-free experience separate from schoolwork.
Yeah, avoiding the pressure.
Exactly. The idea was that kids who don't get that kind of happy reading culture at home might only ever see reading as something tied to tests and performance.
Which makes total sense. You want reading to feel like a pleasure, not just another chore they have to do. But you're saying the benefits go beyond just building a love for books.
Oh, much deeper. While fostering that positive relationship with books is invaluable, absolutely, recent research is demonstrating that developing the habit of reading for pleasure early in life, well, it has these profound advantages that ripple outwards into unexpected areas much later on.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. What kind of later life advantages are we talking about? Was there, research that looked at this connection over time?
Yes, exactly. There was a really comprehensive project out of the University of Cambridge. They tracked a large group data on 10,000 American kids, specifically looking at them between the ages of 9 and 13.
10,000 kids? That's a serious sample size. What did they find?
They found, and this is their phrasing, a dramatic and positive link between engaging in this fun and simple activity, reading for pleasure during early childhood, and significantly better outcomes later, specifically in adolescence.
Better outcomes like?
We're talking better cognition, better mental health, and higher educational attainment.
Wow. Better thinking, feeling better, and doing better in school. That's a powerful combination.
It really is.
And was this just true for kids from certain backgrounds, maybe more privileged families, or was it more universal?
That's the real aha moment from this study, I think. This strong link held true regardless of the child's socioeconomic background.
Regardless.
Yes. It wasn't confined to children from more privileged homes. It suggests that the activity itself, the act of reading for pleasure in early childhood, is a significant independent factor. It drives these positive long-term outcomes across the board.
So the simple act of reading for pleasure seems to be this remarkably powerful equalizer, affecting how well kids think, how they feel, how they do in school, long after they first heard those stories. That's quite something.
Exactly. And while that Cambridge study showed the correlation, that reading for pleasure is linked to these benefits, other brand new research is starting to peek inside the black box, looking at the neuroscience.
Okay. What's actually happening in the brain?
Right. We already have a general understanding that language learning, including through reading and discussing books, is fundamental for overall brain development. It helps build cognitive skills like memory, planning, self-control, what we call executive function.
Executive functions, right.
And also things like social intelligence. That's the baseline.
Okay, so that's the foundation. But you mentioned brand new science. What's new here?
Yes. So there was a recent study that used something called functional near-infrared spectroscopy, or FNIRs.
FNIRS, okay.
Essentially, they put this special cap on kids' heads that lets them see brain activity in real time. They observed the brains of 28 preschoolers using this.
28 preschoolers wearing brain scanning caps.
Okay, so what did they have them do? How did they set up the experiment?
They compared brain activity when the preschoolers were listening to a story read aloud by a human versus listening to a very similar story presented on a screen, with pictures.
Okay, human reader versus a screen story. Similar content, different delivery. I'm guessing there was a difference in brain activity?
A surprising one, actually. The kids heard similar stories. Both were engaging for them, apparently, but their brains responded differently.
How so?
When the story was read aloud by the human, a specific area, the right temporal parietal junction, showed significant activation.
The right temporal parietal junction.
Right.
What does that part of the brain usually do? Well, it's a part of the brain strongly associated with paying attention to other people, processing social cues, understanding their emotions, that sort of thing.
Okay, so social processing. And what happened with the screen?
Crucially, that particular activation didn't happen when they heard the story via the screen. Same story, different result in that specific brain region.
Whoa, that's fascinating. So the same story, similar visual input perhaps, but the human interaction itself lit up a specific part of the brain tied to social and emotional processing.
Precisely. This finding strongly suggests that the social exchange that happens during human-led story time, the eye contact, the tone of voice, the shared presence, even the potential for asking questions or pointing things out.
Yeah, all that back and forth stuff.
Right. That interaction seems to be actively building crucial neural pathways related to communication and empathy development. And it seems to do it in a way that passive screen consumption of the same content just doesn't.
It really underscores that, doesn't it? For early brain development, not all storytime experiences are created equal. Handing a child a tablet with an animated story might be convenient and sometimes necessary, I get it.
Of course.
But the science indicates it's missing a really unique developmental ingredient, something that human interaction specifically provides.
That seems to be the clear implication from this brain science, yes.
So bringing this back to you, the listener who's juggling a demanding life, maybe feeling a bit guilty hearing about that survey showing the decline, or just, plain exhausted at the end of the day, we hear you.
Definitely.
Finding the energy to read Goodnight Moon for the 100th time isn't always easy, or, as that survey showed, even fun for the parents sometimes.
And that struggle with time and energy is completely valid, no question. However, what this research, especially the neuroscience piece, is telling us is that when story time is skipped or maybe consistently replaced by a screen, well, kids aren't just missing out on bonding time or learning to love books.
Although those are real benefits too.
Absolutely. But they are potentially missing out on actively exercising fundamental areas of their developing brains, particularly those areas related to social and emotional intelligence. And it seems they miss out in ways that passive screen time doesn't replicate. It really challenges us, I think, to look hard at that I don't have time reason and ask if we truly fundamentally can't find some time for this, even a little bit.
Yeah, it shifts the perspective, doesn't it? From, should I do this nice, fun thing for my kid?
Yeah.
To perhaps, am I providing my child with a really crucial developmental stimulus?
Exactly. It reframes it.
Okay, so just to quickly recap then, we've seen this concerning decline in parents reading aloud, which prompted us to look deeper. We explored the powerful evidence, like from that Cambridge project, showing a really dramatic link between early reading for pleasure and long-term cognitive mental health and educational benefits, importantly, across all backgrounds.
Right, the equalizer effect.
And now, this cutting-edge brain science reveals why that human interaction piece might be so unique. It's specifically activating brain areas vital for communication and empathy in a way screen time didn't seem to in that study.
Yeah, it paints a pretty compelling picture. And building on that striking finding about the unique value of human interaction activating specific brain pathways during reading, here's something to maybe leave you with.
Okay.
What other seemingly simple face-to-face human interactions in a child's day-to-day life, beyond just reading, might be quietly building crucial neural foundations? Foundations that we risk overlooking or replacing with screens without fully understanding the impact?
That's a powerful question indeed. What else are we maybe replacing without realizing the deeper effect? Lots to think about there.
Definitely.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. And before we go, remember this deep dive was sponsored by Stonefly. Check out their 100 TB immutable and air-gapped SSO NAS for $8,995.